I'll call the work session into order, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Hagner.
Present.
Councilmember Kerr. Here. Councilmember Martin.
Present.
Councilmember Parmet.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor Riley.
Here.
There are 6 members present.
Thank you. First order of business, public comment. If anyone would like to speak, please, you can speak on any topic that's on the agenda tonight, which I'm going to, please step to the podium, state your name, where you work or live in Keystone, or your affiliation with our community. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Christy Camp. I'm a seated full-time resident, and I am concerned and highlighting something on the agenda tonight. The SE group presents, I believe, and it's highlighting that number one most important top priority is preserving or conserving and accessing natural environment. So I wanted to offer or implore any council member to attend an event coming up this Thursday. It is an event by High Country Conservation Center and the Summit County Resource Alliance Park. So it's the landfill in Dillon, and it's Thursday morning, and I have more details. The reason is because the majority of landfills is, including our landfill, is power construction. And I am on the BARCAT committee and I'm involved, but I am not an elected official. I could almost consider myself sustainability staff. Not quite so. I would love to implore someone other than myself to attend this event. Thank you.
It's at 10 o'clock, is it?
It's 9 to 11.
9 to
So
11.
I'd be right at 10. Thank you.
So if anyone is available, please feel free, and perhaps, well, let me finish before anyone else desiring to speak, anyone online? All right. Now, I would, if anyone would like to attend, please do, and that may be something for the town manager and clerk to put out in our update to the community. Now I'll turn it over to the community development director, who will I think we have a presentation by SE Group on the engagement summary report.
We do. Basically, what you're going to hear tonight, we've scheduled approximately a half an hour, but basically what you're going to hear is a lot of condensed information that we've garnered from a tremendous amount of public outreach. And based on that outreach, we are formulating the chapters of the comp plan on what we've heard. So with that, Dylan, I believe you have a slide deck as well, correct?
I do, yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm not able to share. Oh, no, I can. All I had to do was say something. Perfect. Okay.
Can we get this slide deck out there?
Are you all able to see the screen in the room?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for having us. As Lindsay mentioned, this is we're here to talk about what we heard. So as you all know, we've had several engagement opportunities thus far in the project since we started back with you all in January. We attended alongside the RTAP group, the March open house. We have had an online survey open since May. We had two open house events in May, one in July, and then we held a booth at the Bluegrass and Beers Festival for 2 days in River Run Village. We had 274 complete survey responses to the online survey, which was awesome. And thank you and kudos to the Town of Keystone staff who did a really great job of pumping that out to the various networks within the community and making sure that folks were engaging. And also, I know several members of the council did a really good job of promoting it as well. So thank you to all of you who put that survey out into the world and
Dylan?
encourage participation. Yes.
A quick question. As I remember reading the report, that was 274 was the number through about the end, through mid-end of August. How many more surveys have been completed since then?
Sorry, that was through, I believe that's actually through early September, but I don't have that answer off the top of my head. I'd have to go into the back of the data to see if any other responses have been cataloged.
I'll circle back.
All right.
We had several open house participants between the three. We had over 100. And then we've had also several times where we've come and had the opportunity to speak with you all and our Planning and Zoning Commission. So some of this information I'll try to flag as I go along, whether this is information that was pulled from the online survey or from the any of the in-person engagement events, or if there's sort of a hybrid of both that's going on in terms of communicating the information that's on the screen. But I'm in your packets, you have an executive summary and a full, sorry for the length of the pages, report on all the engagement that we received thus far. So some of the quick demographics of the survey, this is based on our last poll of the information, about 24% were living in Keystone for 2 to 5 years. 23% had lived in Keystone for 20 plus years. 30% were couples without children, 12% were households without children. About over half were full-time residents and 40% were part-time residents. 71% were homeowners. Some of the major priorities, and so this is a bit of a combination that we did based on the information that we received in the online survey, and then looking through all the feedback that we got in the in-person open house events, and just kind of basically counting all the responses and then bucketing all that information and trying to come up with what are sort of the major takeaways. So the 5 essential priorities that came were conserving and accessing the natural environment. In the online survey, 94.1% considered this essential or very important. So really strong support. Promoting community gathering and opportunities. So kind of a strong desire for more connection and more social spaces. Improving the ease of getting around, walking and biking infrastructure. I'm sure for many of you, that's not a big surprise considering how important of a point that was during the incorporation process. Ensuring health and wellness opportunities, outdoor recreation, indoor recreation, and then maintaining affordability. So this community investment preferences. So if you recall on the online survey, for those of you that either took it or were familiar with the questions, there was a question about what would you like to see the town of Keystone, invest in or like prioritize. So 68% said.
Hey, Dylan, I'm a bit confused. You said 52% are full-time residents, 48% or 42 are part-time, 8% work here. Where's the subgroup breakdown here? How am I supposed to draw any conclusions about what group wants what? Why would you aggregate all those responses together and expect us to draw any usable conclusions out of it?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let me put it more clearly, because I remember in our initial meeting specifically saying that you needed to do subgroup analysis between visitors, part-time folks, people who work here, and people who actually live here, where you're going to actually draw usable, actionable conclusions from your data sets. Otherwise, you have skewing of the data. We have no idea who wants what or how to weight anything.
So it should be in the report, but on the online survey, we asked a question regarding whether you live in Keystone full-time, part-time, or if you work in Keystone, or if you do, or if none of those options apply to you, and then or if you don't live in Keystone. So all of the responses that you see here today are filtering out people that do not live or work in Keystone. So everybody that is responding, or all the data that's presented here today and presented in the engagement summary, filters out the people that responded to the survey that do not live or work in Keystone.
Yeah, but
Of
if you
which
live
we
up
had
here a
about
couple
20
weeks a year and call
people.
yourself a part-time resident and you don't have an interest in affordable housing, your response is equally weighted against those who actually live and work here full-time.
We can parse out the part-time responses.
We can, or you, like,
You should do this. We specifically asked for this. Why are you showing us data that we can't take action from?
Dylan, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. I think that Aaron's point is taken, and I do agree with the assessment that we were hoping for a little bit more specific for full-time residents. But when you're mentioning we can understand the data specifically for full-time residents here, is that something we can do with what we have in front of us, or is this something you're going to have to workshop and get back to us?
Second option.
Okay, thank you.
So would you like me to continue?
Yes.
Okay. So regarding growth and development, some of the things that people expressed were concerns where new growth shouldn't impact the natural environment, to preserve the small town feel, manage traffic impacts, and regulate design and form. So and regulate design and form more so over like the specific use. So kind of some of the questions that were asked there were around if should we be, regulating how buildings look and feel and kind of do they match the character of the community, or should we be regulating things like the specific use of a building? And people indicated that they were more interested in regulation of design and form. So community support, so things that people were supportive of were community serving retail, diverse affordable housing options, development that matches the character of the community, kind of back to that same point, and then meeting essential community needs. With regards to parks, recreation, and trails, 51.5% rate current recreational opportunities is great, but clear demand does seem to exist in the survey data for expanding indoor recreation opportunities and some new outdoor access. So with regards to outdoor access, what that kind of looked like was mostly public river access. About 55% of respondents said that they would like to see more indoor recreation opportunities. 46% of survey respondents said that they'd like to see more hiking trails, and about 34% said public river access. Some other priorities that rose up to the top, sort of after these major three, were mountain biking trails, playgrounds, and picnic areas. In terms of transportation, I'm sure some of this is probably a little less surprising. The key transportation initiatives that folks indicated in the survey were improving pedestrian safety crossings at US 6. That was the number one point of feedback. Better pathway connectivity, improved bikeability of off-street paths, and enhanced local transit. And that would, so the enhanced local transit, that's sort of outside of the Keystone Resort shuttles that operate in the winter and then on call in the summer, and then in the summit stage. Priority intersection improvements along US 6 were number one was Racer Drive. The number two was West Keystone Road. Number three was East Keystone Road. And number four was Montezuma. Economic vitality. So some of the top strategies that folks were interested in terms of supporting economic vitality were some revitalization for Lakeside Village, streetscape and walkability improvements, and then activation of River Run sort of in the off seasons. Some of the desired business types that people indicated that they were interested in seeing more of were restaurants, number one, mail services, bars and breweries, medical services, and then retail. So we asked a question, if you recall, in the online survey about Lakeside Village. Some of the desired improvements that folks wanted to see were events and live music, restaurant and bars that are around year-round and operating year-round, public art and seating areas, kid-friendly spaces, and better river access, and improved parking. In the environment sustainability, as I mentioned earlier, that was something that really stood out for folks as a top priority. Some things that folks indicated that they'd like to see the town focusing on with regards to environment sustainability were wildfire hazard mitigation, Snake River water quality and ecological health, water conservation, composting, and waste management, and building energy efficiency. Housing. So one of the questions we asked with regards to housing, we tried not to ask too many questions since we knew that we were also working on the data side of the housing needs assessment, but we wanted to try and understand some of the lived experience. So one of the questions was around if you or anyone you know had any issues with regards to housing in the community. And folks indicated that about 57% of survey respondents said that they had to move to a smaller, lower quality housing at some point in their time in Keystone. About 54% said unable to buy or were renting longer than they were initially hoping to. About 52% said need roommates or live with a family, and 42% said they had to move further from their job.
Hey, Dylan, quick
Majority
question.
is that people who, the respondents knew someone who had to do that, or the respondent themselves had to do that?
So that was, excuse me. So that question, there should be an indicator in the engagement report, if I'm not mistaken, that where folks are able to add in, if that was something that was for themselves. I would have to go back in and be able to answer that question better. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Dylan, quick question. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. If I heard you, you said you purposely didn't ask a lot of questions about housing on here because there was an anticipated use of the housing needs assessment. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we wanted to understand the lived experience, not, yeah, so yeah.
Okay, and then did you pull in specific aspects of the housing needs assessment recommendations into the final report?
Well, and I don't think I understand the question.
So I understood you said there was less questions focused on housing in this because of a known housing needs assessment that was occurring at the same time or parallel, similar. Which, to be honest, is a little bit frustrating. But I want to try to understand where that housing is a really important thing to a lot of people in this town. And that was one of the things that I was harping on since the beginning. So I want to understand where housing is being accounted for in the SE presentation, the plan, the recommendations, the final recommendations.
So this question comes from the survey. We also asked questions with regards to housing. So asking people to describe their experience about housing and also asking people to describe what they would like to see in terms of housing, whether that's more housing opportunities, what their struggles with housing are. And we asked a lot of those questions in the in-person engagement opportunities. I think if you recall during Brian's presentation around the housing needs assessment draft, there was an image that he had in his slide showing feedback that we received from the community. And so we presented information about the housing needs assessment and some of the summary findings that we had at that point. So this was during the July engagement. And we also, so at the July engagement, we showed what we had uncovered with regards to the existing conditions in terms of housing that was information being used to inform the housing needs assessment. And so community members got the opportunity to look at that information and provide their comments on that information. So that information will be reflected in the housing needs assessment.
And so the community workshops with those 50 and 60 people respectively is where most of the housing information would have been derived from and not the 274 survey responses?
Well, again, so in the survey, we asked people to describe their lived experience with regards to housing. There was another open-ended question. On that question, I cannot remember what exactly it was. I'd have to go back and re-look at the question itself. Sorry, I didn't have the chance to do that before this call. But that information would be in the engagement summary. So all of the questions that we've asked members of the community with regards to in-person opportunities and the online survey, all of the questions and all of the raw feedback that we received is in that long engagement summary. So there are questions on the online survey, but it was focused. I believe there was 2 questions with regards to housing.
The numbers you're showing us right here from those 274 surveys,
Correct.
and 40% of those people are part-time residents, so second homeowners.
Correct.
Doesn't that seem like a weird question to include them in this data?
He'll break it out, Jason. You don't need to beat him up. Go ahead,
All right.
Dylan.
So an open-ended question that we asked was tourism and its relationship to the town. So we asked people to describe what were some of the positive aspects that they experienced with regards to tourism and some of the challenges that they experienced, understanding that tourism is a big part of the community. So we tried to break it out into what we saw was benefits and challenges. There's a lot of open-ended responses, which that raw data is captured in the engagement report. So the benefits that people indicated were economic vitality and job creation, events and cultural amenities, support for local businesses, and increasing property values. And some of the challenges were winter traffic congestion, overcrowding during peak times, lack of respect for the community and environment, housing cost increases, and infrastructure strain. So the sort of insight here is that my kind of read of the tea leaves, this is a Dylan sentence based on what I read through the engagement feedback, is many residents want tourism managed rather than eliminated, with emphasis on maintaining family-friendly character and avoiding becoming quote unquote another Breckenridge. So some of the key takeaways kind of spanning the various topics, we broke that out into what to preserve and what to change. So in terms of what to preserve, small town, family-friendly atmosphere, access to the natural environment and trails, free parking, particularly at River Run, quiet, peaceful character, wildlife habitat and scenic beauty, and less crowded feel versus other resort towns. So what to change, or what folks indicated they'd be open to seeing change in the town, is Highway 6 safety improvements for pedestrians and vehicles, better connectivity between the village areas, revitalization of Lakeside Village, improved walkability and bikeability, more year-round business activity, and better local transit and parking solutions. These were just some of the success factors that we kind of said could help inform the plan to be responsive to the engagement that we received, which is prioritizing highway safety improvements, balancing tourism economic benefits with resident quality of life, revitalizing Lakeside Village, expanding indoor rec opportunities, protecting natural environment while accommodating the growth, improving connectivity between village areas, and supporting workforce housing without comprising the community character. So that's the end of the slides I have, but I imagine we still have some questions or discussion.
So let me chime in here just for a second. Certainly hear you, Aaron and John, and some of the other council members likely have some initial concerns with regards to what we heard. Think about what we did as an umbrella, big umbrella. We didn't just sample the primary residents of Keystone. We got a good sampling of everyone. Now, what we can do and what we will do is break out the primary residences from the second homeowners or the part-times. So, but we thought it was also fair to look at the big picture as well. But we hear you with regards to, you want to hear directly on the primary residents of the town of Keystone.
I want to hear both sides.
I want to know what each group thinks.
Yes.
If you pool them together, that is completely useless information to me because the groups are not equal sized and they're not equal weighted.
He understands the point, Aaron.
If I might also add one thing, and I kind of crunched the numbers and unfortunately they don't line up perfectly, but the survey, or let me go back. The demographics that we received from the housing needs assessment, approximately 76.7% of our town falls in the age ranges of 18 to 44%. Of that, only 32% of our survey responses came from. And so we had a very, very heavy lean on survey responses from a demographic of our town that represents only, I think it's 7% of our actual town. So we had a primary survey response from the 51 to 64-year-old range, and that range represents 7.9% of our town. So you can't force people to take surveys, right? And I understand that, but I'm really taking, and this is not against you, Dylan, right? I'm taking these with a huge grain of salt because, you know, if you ask a certain demographic a certain question, you're going to probably get the same answer versus if you ask the entire population.
I think sampling, you make a good point. There's a sampling bias that's unavoidable. You can't avoid a sampling bias. What you can do is be aware of it and not treat it as, oh, it is a good, unbiased, holistic umbrella sample of the whole community. You need to be aware of what each group wants, what each group feels, and if you just take aggregate numbers, it's hard to get there.
Okay. Well, tonight's purpose was number one, to reinforce how much effort has gone out to reaching out to the community as a whole, and to really reinforce the fact that the sampling size we got back is pretty damn good with regards to the size of our community. And also to take a holistic look, hear you, absolutely hear you, but we can certainly bifurcate that that data. And this is what we heard as a whole. I get it.
So question, and I know 200 plus survey responses for a community with just over 1,000 registered voters is a good amount, right?
Pretty good.
But to Aaron's point, is it 41 point something % of those were not full-time? So really, let's just for simple math, knock off half that. So we're looking at around 130 responses roughly from full-time people.
I can't do that math.
Sure. But like, I'm trying, and this is very, very loose math here, but like, so I'm just trying to saying that out loud for the crowd.
Yeah, no, I believe we hear you loud and clear.
But if you, from a survey standpoint, if we have 1,000 or 1,200 residents, a 15% response rate of surveys is pretty good overall. We may not like the numbers, but that, what I've seen historically, that's pretty good turnout and response. And also keep in mind the sampling rate particularly, which is why I agree with Aaron and John, we need to look at the data between full-time residents and the second homeowners as well. But that second homeowner population is actually significantly larger than the full-time resident population. Yeah. So you are, it doesn't surprise me to see the numbers that we've seen in here because of that.
Well, and it'd be naive to sit here and pretend like we don't need to hear their opinions too, because they are stakeholders in this community.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. I guess my question is, if we were trying to get more of a balanced data approach that the data in the surveys represented our entire community and more of the areas that weren't necessarily heard, what is a possible next step? Because I know I'd asked previously, how does the census do it? They go door to door, they send out note cards, right? And sending out note cards isn't necessarily a thing. Like, do we have other avenues we can explore to try to get a more holistic approach to all of our residents in town? And I know, Dylan, you and the team have done a lot of outreach and work. And again, you can't force a horse to drink, but if you put the bucket in front of the horse, they might drink a little bit more. So do we get boots on the ground? Do we go walking?
We don't have the capacity to do things like that whatsoever.
Can I chime in for a quick follow-up to those questions? Sorry, I'm Gabby. I know it's been a while since I've been on one of these calls with you, but I'm with SC Group as well. I guess I have two questions. One, is the scope of the project included a qualitative survey? If the scope had included a statistically valid survey, there are very different methods where we would have mailed out a card to every resident or called. I mean, I've worked on projects where we've done statistically valid surveys. That's almost a completely different animal. And it almost seems like that's what you might be asking for. So I just want to flag that. And the other thing is, like, when we do the cross tabulation, the term, which will break out those different groups, what are you particularly looking for? Do you want to get a sense of like how people answered every single question differently? Or are you really trying to look for differences between part-time and full-time on specific key issues? Like, I'm trying to get, like, what's the outcome of that? Like, what are you really looking for to get out of those different answers?
I think that it would be fair to say that even if you are not doing a survey that you want to call statistically valid, if you're giving statistics, there's certain breakdowns and comparisons you can do so that we can understand how the sample represents the demographic group being sampled. And I think that when there are major identified subgroups, people who don't live in the community but come here to work, people who live here part-time, and people who live here full-time, when you look at those major groups, if that's how we choose to break it down, if there are major differences on particular questions, that's something that's worth us knowing. Now, if all the groups answered similarly, that's actually also worth knowing.
Yeah, I think we really have two major groups, because we had a very small sampling of people who don't live here. I mean, don't live here and work here. I think it was very small, but the two groups, you have the full-time residents and you have the second homeowners. And our community has significantly more second homeowners than they do full-time residents, but it would be interesting to see what the full-time homeowners and full-time residents really are interested in this community, and the differerences that the second homeowner have as well. And our challenge as a council, we actually represent all of them. So, but it's need to understand the difference of the desires in each of those groups.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. I think it would be fairly easy, Gabby, to say, here are the questions, and then you have a column that was total, and then you break it down into those two subgroups. I mean, I'd like to see, I would think that'd be easy on every question, just, it's a spreadsheet. But the second thing, there was John brought up a point about age as being a I'm not, that wouldn't capture the age difference issue.
There's a subset that I wanted to ask about. For instance, you talked about on the same day you had a town hall meeting with 40 participants and a West Halls community space meeting that had 25. I wanted to ask you how their opinions broke out differently or were the same. And I think that's a subset of the full-timers, the working families or working individuals. According to this, we have very few families in this town. I'm not sure how valid that is. So I think we are, and it's natural that those are busy people, harder to get to a community forum. But if you can make sure that we understand that even that small sampling, whether they have similar or different views, would be helpful. Does that give you enough guidance?
Well, I just want to respond to something really quickly, and you can let me know if this is correct or not. So in the engagement report, so for the community meeting that you're talking about in May, where we had one meeting at the town office building, and then the next day we went to West Hills. We have that information that we received, or the input that we received from those two nights, broken out in two different sections. So at least the feedback that we received from West Hills should be consolidated with one section of that report. So that's, I don't know if that gets to what you were talking about.
I did recognize that, but in fact, I came in here with a question for a little more detail about the differences between those two groups.
Well, and Dylan, I'll add on there. What are the similarities, right? Because we were advertising these events at every event, right? So if I went to the one meeting, I then heard about the next meeting. So did I go to the next meeting and share my opinion there as well? And so I tend to recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there was like a sign-in sheet of some. Yeah, is there any way to see if the groups were the same minus one person, or were the groups completely different? And I'm not expecting, John Smith showed up here but didn't show up there, but like a general feel, right? Like, was it generally the same group, or were they completely different groups? Did we actually capture the working class in West Hills? Because I think that's important. Overlap?
Yeah.
Carol.
I did have a couple questions that are more generic, if you can address those, please. One is, this is just about my understanding. You've got a phrase in there, new developments, a preference for new developments that fit in with the town character, versus focusing on land use. In other words, these are your words, regulate form over function. I wish I understood that. I appreciate the effort to explain, but could you go another step or two? What do you mean?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but what I think it's saying is that, so one of the questions that we asked is around basically trying to get a little bit of better understanding of how do people feel about the way that the town regulates land use? Would they prefer that the town focuses more on the form and like the function of a building and how it fits in, right? So the look, the aesthetics, the way it does it match the community character? So we're kind of calling that the form. And then the use of the land. So basically, is it a commercial building? Is it a residential building? Is it used for a pet groomer, or is it used for a dentist office, right? So for the most part, people cared more, broadly speaking, that about the town regulating buildings looking and feeling like it fits within the community character than they care about regulating the specific uses of buildings. So they care more about making sure that it fits and is architecturally, good, as opposed to if a dentist office or a veterinary office is using a particular building. Does that?
Okay, that is helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
My second question, you mentioned in here diversifying businesses. What are your insights about how to take those steps? Or is that beyond the scope of this study?
Well, I would say that's more something that we'll try to put pen to paper on with regards to the plan writing itself, in terms of trying to channel what we heard and then coming up with recommendations. Yeah, we're working kind of in the background on that section right now. So
Yeah, Carol, what that question is one of the hardest that we tend to get in these types of plans, because it's such a mixture of market forces and then what you can do as a town to set yourself up, whether that's, incentives or the right kind of zoning or land use to get the types of businesses that you want. It's such like a push-pull between the private and public sectors. And I think especially with a lot of the shopping opportunities just down the road in Dillon, it's an especially tough nut to crack for Keystone of what types of businesses will thrive. And even though despite, if you want a grocery store, you want some of these local serving things, like with the market and what's nearby in the region, like what can Keystone really manage to keep around, I guess, is a different question. But we will approach a lot of those recommendations in the plan draft itself.
I think all of those considerations are not only valid, but shows that you really understand this. And I'm looking forward to that part. Thank you.
Did you have another question?
If you don't mind. I hear this a lot, and I've seen it show up several times in these results. We don't want to be like Breck. So I'm curious as to what you understand to be about Breck that our community members don't want to see here, because there are several possibilities. What is your observation?
my observation is that I think people don't want it to feel as busy and crowded
Busy. Okay.
as Breckenridge, or as sort of the yeah, I think the bustling nature of it, the sort of density, the level of activity that's happening. For the most part, the flip side of what I see in those comments is people like that Keystone feels small and quiet, and that they can access natural resources really, really quickly, and that they are able to see wildlife from their house, and that they don't necessarily feel like they're, overrun with tourists on a daily basis.
Okay.
That's my
Great
reading of
summary.
the tea leaves.
Thank you.
Dan?
Okay, well, before we go, two things. Number one, I know we're requesting that we have kind of a breakdown, which I think would be very valuable, like my colleagues talked about. But I guess I'd like to know what is the expectation of council? What are the next steps? Are you going to go through that as well, or is that? I'd like to understand what's next.
Lindsay?
All right, so what is next is we are going to be circling back with the housing needs assessment. I got questions and comments from a majority of the council members, and also some additional questions from planning and zoning. So we're going to circle back on that. Obviously, we're going to circle back on this. We do have draft chapters, not in its entirety, but we were planning in October coming to you with the draft plan, at least a majority of the chapters. We're still waiting on transportation, correct? And maybe a couple other elements, but they have begun writing, we have begun reviewing, but it's obvious to me that, you know, and this was somewhat anticipated, that on certain items, we're going to have to circle around again. So we get a draft plan that is closer to what has been brought up is from council and planning and zoning.
And how will you do that? I mean, it's kind of tough getting this a day in advance and then saying, I understand it.
Yeah.
I guess when those things, like the circle back analysis that Aaron talked about, you know, it'd be nice as soon as you can do that kind of,
We'll try to give you more lead time.
that would be good to get.
Absolutely. It's tough because I did commit. I've indicated that I'm trying to get you a plan by the end of the fall. Today's the first day of fall. But I have a schedule that I'm trying to keep you on.
Sure.
I did build in a couple of contingencies, but it's going to be tight. And it might even need some special meetings
Well,
in order to keep that commitment to you.
then just follow up that. Gabby, would this, with the request that Aaron brought up of kind of breaking down the questions, is that a huge ask or is that just a run the computer a little and the sort a little differently and print?
I mean, I think the process would be to pull that cross tabulation report and then integrate those results into the, there's like the longer version, the full report of like where those groups, you know, areas of agreement or areas of disagreement, particularly, you know, areas where it wasn't that much. I think we just note that it wasn't different. So that's probably, it's not a ton of work, but I guess my bigger question is, do you want to see that information before you review draft chapters? And Lindsay, have you talked with them about the like review editing process of like how we want to go about that yet? Or do you want us to give you some potential options? Because it's going to be a lot of material to digest. And so we're going to want to make sure to give you enough lead time, maybe have a feedback form so we can parse out kind of big picture edits versus line, you know, specific page edits. And I'm just not sure what conversations you've had about that already.
Have not.
Okay.
Primarily because I used the housing needs assessment and tonight as a feel for the level of detail that they would like to see. And based upon the feedback we're getting, I think we're going to have to rethink how we break it apart and present.
Okay, well, maybe we'll just talk about that internally and then you can
Yeah, let's do that.
go back to council with some choices for the finished last phase, you know, of the project.
Yep. And Dylan and I have had some quick conversations on various options on that. But I think the level of detail that we're hearing certainly will steer us in the right direction.
Carol?
But let's talk briefly about the transition from the draft to the final, because the final becomes our blueprint for the future. And so whether it be a matter of special forums or multiple sessions, how do we get from here to there?
We're going to form a plan, and I will get back to you by the next meeting on how we think it's best to proceed in a timely manner and an accurate manner. I don't have that answer right now, Carol.
That's valid, but I feel that we have some sense of that we are not completely buying all the data. So if that's true, then how can we be ready to accept a draft?
We're not going to move forward with seeing the chapters, at least not any of the major chapters anyway, that are based on empirical data or the data we've gathered.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that. The last thing I want to do is get caught in this circle. And you're also forgetting, I'm vetting everything. Before you see it, I'm vetting everything with planning and zoning. So that's another piece of the puzzle. But with that being said, and this probably is not necessarily the forum to do it, but keep in mind, there is a budget and I need to be cognizant of that budget and keeping everything on track.
And if I may weigh in, we have to remember, this is a key component of decisions we make, but the ultimate decision-making comes down to the town council. This is just used to inform your decisions. It's going to be impossible to get accurate data, especially with ice raids happening in our country. If we send government people walking door to door, no one would answer it anyways. Our data is not going to be perfect, no matter what we do. And it's up to you as the council when we actually reference this document over the next 5 to 10 years, making decisions to put your own eye and view and understanding of the community at that time.
Joe? I definitely understand that. I think that where part of my perspective is and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I feel a responsibility to set this, we'll call it a blueprint. And I know it's not, a solid blueprint, but set this blueprint up for the best success, because everyone around this table could be different in 5 years. Hell, everyone around this table could be different in 6 months, right? We never know what's going to happen in the world. But I feel a responsibility to make the best without the hope that somebody in 7 years will understand that the data might have been a little bit different than what we were hoping for. And that's why I have so many questions about this. And Lindsay, if I heard you correctly, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot asking for an answer right now, but there will be processes to identify some of these areas that we feel might not have been hit 100%.
We're circling back. The last thing I want to do, and SE Group wants to do, is start formulating a draft plan if we're completely off base, or if we're not looking at something in the manner in which was envisioned.
So I'll just be blunt, right? Like if you come back and you say the draft plan was used only based on the survey data or only based on this, that's going to be a huge concern for me. And I'm really glad to hear that there's other processes for that.
You're going to get the same data presented separately.
Okay. And then I have a question for Gabby, and please correct me if I am saying these types of surveys wrong, but you said statistical and quantitative are the two main types of surveys?
Well, I said this statistically valid. This is more of a qualitative with an L, not quantitative.
Okay. So the statistically valid, or I guess, which one of these types of surveys is typically used for comp plans? Are statistically valid ones not typically used?
Rarely. Can I actually make a larger point that's kind of related to your question?
Sure.
So a comprehensive plan isn't just based on survey data. So I think we're maybe taking the survey data itself too seriously. Like there's the examining of all the existing conditions. So all the research we did into every topic, the conversations we had with all the stakeholders from infrastructure to land use to parks and rec to natural resources. There was, there's the census data that we've pulled. There's these open house conversations. We were having more conversational information. There's our professional opinion from the training we have as planners, and there's this survey data, and it's all coming blended to give you these recommendations. So the survey data is informing it to some degree of saying, we want to emphasize these 3 issues because they're so important, connectivity, housing, sense of place, whatever it is. Like the survey data can help us give that, but it's very, there's so much more that's going into the plan than just the survey data. And I just need to make that point because I don't want you, even if we like slice the data all the ways you want, I don't know if it's going to give you like the perfect answer that you want. There's so many other things that we've been doing to give you the best set of recommendations for this plan.
I think those are important points, and I appreciate it. We want to understand the sense of the community, but you're right, that is an element of this bigger project where we've hired you for.
All right, any other questions? Aaron?
Just feedback or building on some previous points, like John said, there's no way that we're getting perfect data. And I don't think that's the point either. And I think it's good that this takes information from multiple points and puts it all together. I do think that we're putting a lot of town money into this survey. And so if the question was asked like, well, how do you want the data parsed? And I think that was already hit by the mayor pretty well. And I don't think it's a huge lift to say like anytime we see statistical quantitative data coming from a qualitative survey, that we understand the limits and the biases of that data. That's all. We want to know the differences within those two groups. And we also want to know where it can be described, what is the difference between the respondent group demographics and the community demographics. That just gives us a picture so we know how to qualify that quantitative data.
Any other comments? Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This was, I think, a good first start. Obviously, more data, not more data, but a better breakout of the data for us. I think it'll be informative. I know I, like Aaron and John, want to understand the different groups that we have and how this aligns with the demographics as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Loud and clear.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Dylan. And hopefully we didn't beat up on you too badly.
Yep, this is good feedback. Thank you all.
The next item is discussion of financials, and I turn it over to the town manager.
Turn it over to our finance.
Alex, Finance Director. All right, Mayor and council members. So the July tax revenues and the August financials are in your packet, starting on page 128. It has all of my notes in there. So usually your preference is that you guys just want to ask the questions and not for me to go over everything. So I'm assuming that that's what you want to do this time? Yes. All right. So fire away at your questions.
Questions?
Just to double check, we're talking about the draft budget or the,
The financial.
Looking at the financials, so the July tax revenues and the August financials, and it's page 128 of the workshop packet.
Comments, just one comment. I was still surprised at our sales revenue. I mean, the revenue is going up versus what I know the other towns' struggles that they're having.
Right, yeah, and I mean, it's nice to know that a year-to-date, and that the year-to-date is, in comparison to last year, is just February through July is up 6%.
I can weigh in on that with a little speculation. First of all, thanks to Heidi, we're definitely being much more compliant in all our tax collection, in the state collection of the county tax, the other.
Is that the reason? It's not because.
And I also think because a big portion of our sales tax is based upon lotting. And we've gotten reports that our lotting numbers have been strong, which leads me to speculate the other towns which have a much stronger retail restaurant base than us. People are still coming up here. They're just not spending as much money when they're up here.
Makes sense.
There's definitely been a nice amount of tax revenue that I've been able to ensure that it's coming to Keystone instead of a different jurisdiction where it was previously going. And it's not just, unfortunately, it's not just Summit County. A lot of it was going, or, you know, some of it was going to Dillon, and it's ongoing. So it's I feel like I send emails out a few times a week to these businesses to make sure that they're compliant. There's certain steps when you own a business, when you have a sales tax license, when you do business in more than one jurisdiction, you have to have a sales tax license for each jurisdiction. And unfortunately, some of these lodging managers in some of these retail shops, for whatever reason, didn't realize that. And then some of it was just the state's records and not realizing where these business shops were set up. And so they had them in the wrong jurisdiction. So we're fortunate that we're small enough that it's pretty easy for me to identify who we're not getting sales tax revenues from. If we were much bigger, it would be a much bigger undertaking.
Other questions? No other questions?
I like the new colors.
I try to change them up every once in a while just to just give you something different to look at.
In that case, we'll move on to discussion of the budget.
And we will keep this with our finance director.
All right, so last meeting, we started to go through the budget. We didn't get through all of it just because time didn't allow it. So we'll go through the rest of the budget this evening, hopefully. If not, we can continue it next meeting. I did, based on your guys' input from the last meeting, based on some information that we received between then and now, highlighted some of the differences that we've updated in the budget, just to make it easier for you guys to know what was changed. And I'll keep doing that each time we review the budget. I'll highlight the changes. That way you guys can pinpoint them easily. And I know in the budget, the next meeting is October 28th, but we can definitely talk about the budget on the October 14th meeting too, if you all like. So just give me direction on that. And then also in my memo, you'll see the projects that I kind of highlighted of projects that the council has kind of discussed that they would like to do in the future. So I put those in there just so you're all aware of what's going to be coming up in future years. Because these aren't small projects. So they're definitely going to take some funding. So on that note, is it your preference that I kind of go through the highlighted selection of what has changed from last time, or do you just want to start where we left off last time?
I actually have a question to go back because I know that there was a small little change that was made. I just want clarification for us.
Sure.
Line 67, general government administrative wages. I know we had talked about COLA and merit and how that'd be a pool. When you're making this budget, did you anticipate or budget for a full 6%, or did you use some kind of aggregation where it might only be like 5.5 is the anticipated percentage?
I just did the full 6%. And the reason I do that is because it's naturally not everybody's going to get a 6%
Sure.
merit and COLA increase. But that gives us when we do our appropriations, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room rather than putting too less in there and then needing to do a supplemental budget in case. So it's anticipated that we're not going to use that full 930,000.
And I can't stress enough, the way Heidi and I put the budget together is conservative. We overestimate our expenses. So at the end of the year, very few of these lines will likely be at 100% of what the budgeted amount.
Okay.
That way we have wiggle room if something like our revenue drops significantly for some reason. You don't have to create basically an entirely new budget, or it's expenses are inflated, revenues deflated.
And why was Public Works the only department spun off and not included in that general fund? And not general fund, sorry, the,
General government, yeah.
thank you.
It's because it's the requirement of GASB that be separated out because it's public facing. So we don't have a say in what we want to do with that. It has to be spelled out separately.
Why is the rest of our staff not seen as public facing?
That's a question far above us.
Where's Jasby?
This refers specifically to the wages. Has to be broken out by
Just department.
a whole department.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yes,
the Public Works Department.
it's a public works department. Mm-hmm.
So,
And then just sort of just on this too, when you guys are looking at this draft, we are going to do a supplemental budget for 2025, but we're going to do it at the same time as you do the 26 budget approvals. So we have to do a public notice and everything like that. That way people can weigh in at the same time and we'll get everything done. And then the supplemental budget for 25 has to be done before the end of the year, and there's no exceptions to that.
And you'll tell us why.
I'm sorry?
You'll tell us why we had to do the supplemental. I mean, I assume,
Right. Well, and you can look at, you can look at both. You can look at the August financials and you can see how it was budgeted versus what the current estimates are. And then you can also see that.
are we anticipated to go over the budgeted amount?
what,
We are by a little bit. And then, yeah, in the general fund, it's about 80,000. In the lodging tax fund, it's more. And the reason the lodging tax fund is more is for auditing purposes and for transparency, since we have the public safety piece broken out into two funds. It's broken out currently in the 25 budget between the general fund and a lodging tax fund. And for auditing purposes and transparency purpose, they need to be paid out of one fund. So we're transferring money out of the general fund into the lodging tax fund. And then that way, all the invoices are paid from the lodging tax fund.
Thank you for jumping ahead on that one.
There's nothing to be worried or concerned about with this supplemental budget.
Okay.
okay,
We'll talk about it.
no, that answered my question.
Yeah, and if you want, like, since we're just primarily talking about the 26 budget today, for the next meeting on the 14th.
But be careful what you're adding to the 14th.
Yeah, I mean, we can go over, like, depending on how many questions you guys have in the 26 budget, then we can highlight the 25. And what
We have a council member to select on the 14th.
Okay. Or some, we have a few meetings that we can go over that. And at the very least, what I could do is put pieces together to put into the packet for you guys to review and just not discuss.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
Because then we can, if it's pressing, we can discuss it the next one, but we've had 2 weeks to think it through.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll do that
Let's
then.
do that.
We'll just do it for informational purposes.
Thank you.
Now, why don't we take off where we start where we took off last time?
Last time, okay, perfect. Let me get to that section and then I'll tell you what page it is. Okay, so it's on page 146 in the workshop package and it starts with the capital and non-routine projects.
Could you tell us on what page it is on the budget?
For what line item?
What line item on the budget?
Oh, certainly, 162.
Yeah, got it.
Yep.
We'll just continue with questions that you guys have.
Could I ask the town manager to go over the proposed expenditures and explain why we're making these expenditures?
If you give me just a second, I've somehow lost my.
Well, the town manager does that. If I could ask the question to high key, just to make sure I'm understanding the data correctly. Page 4, line 161, so one line up. I'm seeing a 2025 estimates $3.29 million, and then a proposed budget of 3.964. So am I correct in seeing a proposed increase in spending by $664,493?
I can answer that. No.
Okay,
Out of the general fund, yes,
okay,
because the 2025 budget had that approximately 500,000 of our police force in the general fund. And the 2026 budget is going to transfer that money to the 2% lodging tax fund and pay the entire police out of the 2% lodging tax.
where
So-
is that on 25?
It is, it would be
The police,
under the police.
it's in the public safety and it's zeroed out, but the transfer of funds kind of accounts for it. But the difference
What
in
line is that? I'm sorry.
the police budget, public safety, that is going to. be-
144.
Thank you.
You can see the 566. 2025.
Yeah, but then you'll see the transfers down before. So, I mean, the expenditures did increase in, if you just go through each expenditure line, you can see like, if you just go into public safety, like the 911 expenses, for instance, have increased by 40,000.
So I understand, column F with the approved budget, but I'm looking at the 2025 estimates. Total down there of 3.299636 million. And that does not include the law enforcement contract support.
It does. It's just, you have to go down to line 159 and you'll see the transfer to the lodging tax fund for 762,500.
Gotcha. And so that's a $112,500 difference there, but what makes up the 500 and change additional increase in spending?
Well, we can go
Sorry
back.
if I'm like not making sense. I'm just trying to
No,
understand.
you're totally making sense. But to give you the information that you want, let's go back up to like, I guess our expenditures start on line 53 and we'll compare the two. Oops, wait, no, I'm in the wrong, sorry, I went to our financials. A second here, back to the budget.
Oh, there's a big hunk there in office lease.
Yes,
What line, sorry?
It would be 61.
No.
Community support grant program?
No.
81, how about 81?
We'll try that one. Okay. All right, so $300,000 there.
Yeah,
Cool.
plus an additional close to 70,000 for other, that's in anticipation of the purchase.
Okay. Where I'm getting at with this is that I'm noticing a roughly $400,000 decrease in total revenue and an increase of 664. And I know that it's not all of that in operational expenditure. So I want to make sure that we're being really cautious of that and that this isn't something that will happen.
You have to take into account the other funds. You are just looking at the general fund now,
Okay.
and you have to take into account how those expenditures, especially like that $650,000 transfer, then affects the 2% lodging tax fund.
You understand how it is a little messy because things go back.
Yeah, transferring in and out, that's,
It's what we have to do.
I understand.
yeah,
Government budgeting is
Yeah.
messy.
but we need time to get our head around because this is
And it's been,
complicated.
yeah, well, and it has. I mean, it's like in creating the 26 budget from the previous budget and making all the modifications. I mean, it's been a little messy and it's been a little tricky. Just because the line items aren't the same. And I've worked, and I've been working with our auditor to make sure that like our budget is compliant to their wishes.
If you go to like line 271, you'll see the revenues for lodging tax jump from 1.6 to 2.3.
271? Okay.
And that's because of the transfer made from funds. So our bank balance is generally staying at the same level of spending. It's just we're using different accounting practices given the recommendations we received from our auditor and Heike's better understanding of the GASB regulations in my work.
Is there a way that we could have a consolidated?
Yes, the resolution will show all the fund expenditures.
I'm sorry, and I was gonna ask for like consolidated summary, right? So the top page, right, has all the fund balances, all the amazing breakdown that y'all have done, 2024 actuals, budget, actuals, estimates, proposal, like all in one area where we could, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one page, but if we could just see all of those line items without all the details, right, that might be helpful.
It would be the resolution for adoption of the budget.
Okay.
That's
Well, and just to clarify too, I just want to make sure I understand you. So you're just looking for a summary page to the budget per fund on beginning balance, revenue, expenditures, and ending balance. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, so then this way, we're not sitting here looking at this page and not taking into account the other funds.
And I think that will clarify transfers in a more useful way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would add one other thing to that. And then you'll probably have 4 or 5 bullets that are big issues, such as I know for the proposed acquisition, there's a big number that's been thrown in that's different. So those big differences, you'll call out in just specific bullets.
those will be in the manager or the
The
budget
notes.
report.
Well, it'll be in the budget, yeah, it'll be in the budget memo when we do it, but I think these guys want it prior to that, which is perfectly fine. I can definitely do that, and I'll get it in the next packet for your review, and not for discussion at the next meeting, just for time.
But just as a quick summary, no, we're not increasing spending $600,000 to $700,000.
Thank you.
And another example is on the revenue side. Now, this looks like revenue dropped by about $400,000. If you go up to the area just above it, grants, they only list the grants.
$200,000 drop.
Yeah, but that's right. And so grants are something that will come and go, and I would expect over the year, we may very well get more grants and that number drops, raises.
Yeah.
But you only list those that you currently have.
On the sidewalk too.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, I mean, when you're looking at the government budget and finances, and I'll highlight the changes just so you guys know, because that's important. But they're not going to coincide from year to year. Some of our reoccurring expenses will, but it's based on what the goals are, and what grants we have. So based on what projects we do, sometimes they're going to go up and sometimes they're going to go down. It's not like in your private business where they pretty much like stay the same, or you have your 3% increase, or your.
I just wanted to make sure that we were not proposing a $600,000 increase in spending when we were anticipating a lower of the volatility that you're explaining.
Yeah, no, I completely hear what you guys are saying, and I can comply with your wishes to give you
A one pager.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean, and granted, I'm getting to learn, I'm learning you guys and trying to figure out what you guys want. And so it's just based on detail, but now you want a bigger picture at a high level, which is nice.
Unfortunately, we want both.
Well, obviously, yeah. So the next one, and you'll see that.
Okay.
I'll give that to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
The detail's great, but if it could just be like.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% there with you.
Thank you.
Proceed then. Or Mr. Town Manager.
So we're in capital non-utility projects. So facility modifications, we put $40,000 in there. Might be security doors. It all really depends on our final purchase situation for the building. But security doors, possibly new internet system, our own secure internet system. We're not quite sure of. We had to budget large actually on a lot of these things for the purchase of the building, not knowing if we were going to have full ownership, what our financial obligations under the purchase agreement was. So these numbers will change once we finalize our purchase agreement.
And to be quite frank, I would even think that 40,000 isn't enough to do a lot of the upgrades that we necessarily would like to do, including installation of doors, upgrades of electrical systems or tech systems. Like those are expensive modifications. So
Yeah, but this is just, as I said, we're not going to necessarily be doing that if we don't have ownership of the building yet. These numbers will be finalized and they'll be stretched out over many years. There's nothing failing at this point. There's no emergency needs in the building. And if there are, they would be, well, we'll discuss that later.
somewhere else.
So what else do we have? Trails and open space. master
You have,
plan.
town signage.
Oh, town signage. This is a relatively low number here because we are going to be doing a wayfinding study next year, and we'll be looking into much more extensive signage throughout the town. But a lot of this, we have town signage in two rows. We have one in public works, and that deals mainly with like replacement of stop signs, issues like this. This town signage is, we've been talking about historical or environmental informative signs along our pathway. We actually expect to get grant money for those. We don't have that grant money awarded yet, so we have the expense, but we don't have an offset income line for it. And we're going to need a sign that says Town Hall.
You talk about the trail and open space master plan. I would like to better understand what that is and how we get that done. And I also want to know, you mentioned a wayfinding study. Is that the same thing? Is that a different study?
No, that's entirely different.
Okay,
That's-
could you distinguish the two
Yeah,
and who
trails
does
and
them?
open space are, well, it's being driven by the Trails and Open Space Committee.
Sure.
So my vision for this is we have our community pathway, which kind of goes from one end of the town to the other. We have to figure out how to make our community pathway go from one end of the town to the other. And then we have to figure, and this will tie in with our connectivity study that we did is really focused on Highway 6. But the trails, open space and trails plan will also show how our trail system reaches out to our national forest trails, our specific neighborhoods, areas like that. So it's going to set a long-term goal for us on our rec path, dirt path vision for the communities.
But is that something we contract with some consultants to do? Is that something that the Trails and Open Space folks at least create the structure for? How does this work?
We'll see where we get with Trails and Open Space and what they recommend, but the money's in there in case we have to consult with an outside contractor.
Yeah, I would expect you would probably have some outside contractor support there, particularly when we right now, about the only thing that we own in this town is the region, and you call it the community path, but it's regionally the regional trail. That comes in, goes in through Mountain House and around. None of the other part is town paths. They officially belong to someone else. And the Trails and Open Space Committee, I believe, is going to be looking at all of those and giving recommendations of where they believe this town ought to be going, is to look at consolidating those and to address the issues of connectivity across the entire community and the connectivity into the national forest.
Okay, I get these distinctions. I'm trying to figure out where does it stop being something that our committee is working on and something that we contract out. Maybe Lindsay can help me understand this.
So, hey, Jess, are you actually on right now?
Yeah, I'm online.
So, as far as the wayfinding, Jess has reached out to and help me a little bit with regards to what we're doing with regards to the wayfinding and the grant that we're working on.
Sure. So I put in a proposal with the graduate program that I went to, the Masters of the Environment program at CU Boulder. And if we get approved on this project, then a team of graduate students will develop a wayfinding inventory study for town signage that includes rec path and community path, historic sites and significant town signage, as well as some trailhead inventory and trail markings that we need so that there's a cohesive plan across town. The result would be a plan, and then they would not be involved for any of the implementation side, but they will help us to look for funding sources and do some of the design.
It'll extend even beyond that.
Yeah,
I'm a really big fan of informative signs like the parking signs that you see driving into Breckenridge, indicating.
Oh, absolutely.
Which lots are open and things like that.
You don't want to become Breckenridge, remember?
But I think this creates a sense of
We do want
community
people to
too.
make the correct turn when rather than just blocking the road.
So that was just.
So that explains what the wayfaring finding is and who may or may not be doing that.
And
And
that
this
will be
is,
overseen
yeah,
by the Trails and Open Space Advisory Committee.
okay.
Now, on a bigger scope, and is certainly the Trails and Open Space Master Plan. And it'll be overseen by that advisory group and ultimately reviewed by council. We haven't gotten quite that.
A good question, though. The actual drafting of the master plan, would that be done by a contractor under the guidance of the Trails and Open Space Committee?
We don't quite know yet. I would hope that internally we will have enough data and enough information to certainly supplement the need for a full bore consultant.
So staff would then do the predominant writing of that. Potentially staff could do the
I
predominant
believe
writing.
so.
Because I would not expect the Trails and Open Space Committee to do the drafting.
Oh,
of that.
no. Review only. No,
Right.
absolutely not.
This might, and this is, as we said, this is.
Thank you, that helped.
This is not a detail of what's happening. It's anticipation of what could happen. So open space and trails with staff might develop a really good open space and trails plan in and of itself. And we might have to bring in engineers and land use consultants to explain why we can or can't do some of the ideas that have come up with open space and trails. There is going to be some expert input that we will need to contract out for, especially with the vast different ownerships of the pathway systems.
John.
Thank you for all that information so far. And I know this is a potential of what could happen. How confident are we with the cost of the Trails and Open Space Master Plan with the consideration that our comprehensive use plan is already 2x its budget from last year. Or is estimated to 2x.
No, it's not 2X.
Approved budget is 100,000, 2025 estimates are 200,000.
Grant.
Yeah, that
It was
just,
100,000 grand.
it just wasn't budgeted properly because basically it was it's 200,000 for the comp plan, but we got $100,000 grant. And so the way that it was budgeted was, since we got the $100,000 grant, that the expenditure would just be 100,000. In reality, yes, that's the way it is, but for budgeting purposes and for auditing purposes, you have to account for the full.
Yeah, there was the grant mistake.
No, and I'm not trying to, so are we comfortable with 30,000? Is it a placeholder?
I'm fairly comfortable. We are comfortable with
Okay,
almost all the numbers in here, but complications might arise.
of course. And I, sorry, I just have
Yeah,
a second
go.
one, the wayfinding plan. I know there's a lot more that goes into it than what I'm about to say, but like what I heard most of Jessica saying is like a lot of the work will be going to trailhead, seeing trails, like where signs are needed. Have we looked into if there must be a community member that loves history, right? And could tell us that there needs to be a sign here.
Yes, we have.
Okay, cool.
Yes, we have. And I think Jessica probably overplayed just trailheads.
Sure, sure.
A lot of this is, what do we want town of Keystone signage to look like?
Yeah.
Do we want it to be the wooden street signs that as you go out South Ridge Road? Or do we want it to be the green metal street signs as you're along Highway 6? Even details like that.
And importantly, what she also mentioned was possible funding sources, which would be really important to understand. All right, thank you for that. Sorry, Carol.
No, thanks. I'm going to follow up on those. So yeah, I do think just this proposal is exciting, and yet it's up in the air. So what's the timeline when we know about that?
I can share the timeline.
Generally,
Yeah, we will know for sure by the end of this year. I believe they award the accepted proposals in November, and then they assign a student team in December.
okay. And is there a cost sharing involved with that?
We put into the proposal that we would fund students through a stipend. And so we have 4,000 slotted for the students, with 1,000 for any expenses should they need them.
Okay, excellent.
And
And
that's 4,000 total, not per?
Total.
total of
Thank you.
5K for the two buckets of money. And then the second thing is, you were talking about engineering studies may be necessary to assess some of the good idea fairy stuff that comes out of a master trails plan. Is that included in this number? Did you anticipate that, or would that come out of our engineering money someplace else?
Included in this number,
Okay,
but until we.
included up to a point, right?
That is kind of a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Especially as you get over. in the center
Sure, but
part.
these details are really helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and with all these projects and, once we actually get actual estimates,
Yeah.
which won't happen until next year, they'll go and depending on the amount, if it's under John's amount that he can approve it. But if it's over the 50,000, it'll go to you guys. But if changes and modifications need to be made, if something comes in way more than what we've estimated for the budget, you guys will know. We'll definitely communicate that with you. It's part of the budget is, we're doing it now, but we're not really going to know those expenses until we get those proposals. So they're guesstimates. We feel confident with the guesstimates based on, prior knowledge, but things can certainly change, especially with pricing.
Thank you.
John?
I wanted to move on to a different line item. Is anyone else opposed or has more questions?
Go ahead. As long as you're still under capital non-routine.
I am. Mr. Manager, I said I'd come back to the question about the vehicles and the truck, right? Understand the need for, town vehicles eventually, right? My question's around liability and, I'll just kind of rattle off the questions so you can take them. Will this minimize the need for mileage reimbursements that were previously spelled out above in the budget? If not, why would that not eliminate them or reduce them significantly? Insurance related to this, how would insurance work? Is there maintenance cost anticipated? Is there a plan for approved drivers? Is there like a motor vehicle tests or, like we have an MVR for Vail, right? You have to go through a background check, make sure you don't have a DUI or an aggravated whatever, right? But is there a plan for approved drivers? And then lastly, and this might be for the town attorney, my understanding is town vehicles carry a significantly different liability, possibly to them, right? So if I go out in the town truck and hit something or somebody, is there different liability?
No, if you got in your private car doing town business.
It's the same thing? Okay, cool. So if you want me to repeat the three top ones, I totally can. Question.
Yes, we will require certificate trade courses on driving vehicles. Everyone will have to take these courses, be certified. We said we'll develop our driver policy. We actually should have them right now. For anyone operating a vehicle in town business. That's very important. And,
Maintenance cost, insurance cost?
maintenance costs, insurance costs will be wrapped into our general insurance line and maintenance cost into the cost of the vehicles itself.
There's a
which
line,
won't be
there,
very
yeah, there
large.
is a line item for maintenance and lease equipment.
Okay.
And I believe, without scrolling up to it, I believe it's at $10,000.
Okay. And will that also, I presume we're gonna have a logo on there, maybe like flashing lights for the plow, if we get a plow on there, will that also, is this number including the full kit of the truck or is?
We're anticipating.
Okay.
Once again, who the heck knows
What?
what car prices are gonna be
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, let alone 3 months.
Understood.
And then just as a side note too, currently, even though we do have a mileage reimbursement for local travel, none of our employees has requested it. So the only travel reimbursements that we have done with staff and council is for training purposes, going the distance. So I don't think that's going to save any money there.
But it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, we have to keep it because people.
Oh, yeah.
Can we move on?
Yep.
I'm looking at the time.
We still have 100,000 economic development and marketing. Applied for a $50,000 grant, that would be a matching grant.
So what's that for? Sorry.
A Colorado Office of Tourism.
Oh, yeah, that's, okay, got it.
But that's the number you guys, we put in there last year, just to show our commitment
Yep.
to this. Any other questions in maintenance or capital non-routine projects?
Nope.
Throw it back to Heidi.
All right, and so if you kind of go to the bottom, and I'll summarize this on one sheet for you guys too for the next one. You'll see on line 203 there, it spells out our table restricted funds that we have to set aside legally. And then you'll have your unrestricted funds there, and that's just to kind of let you guys know what there might still be that we can spend or carry over into our reserves for the next year. We did spell out the proposed balloon payment for the building that will change once we actually know what our contract is. But we wanted to put that in there so you're all aware that we kind of need to set that aside.
And I want to make it clear, that proposed balloon payment line is technically completely superfluous to that. That's unrestricted funds, but if we get into a purchase agreement where we have a balloon payment at the end, we felt it's important that council keep that in their mind as we're making spending decisions going forward, that 5 years from now, we might have
The future cost.
a future cost that we want it to show up in all the budgets and you're aware of it instead of all of a sudden.
No,
at
yeah.
the end of it.
And that way, when we get new council members, they're aware of it.
And so the 1366 is because the council passed the 35% reserve policy.
Right, I have a question about that. So you've got two different lines, the Tabor restricted, the 35% restricted that we voted on. But then it says the 35% held in reserves also covers this Tabor restriction. So I'm not sure how both can be true.
So they're spelled out differently. So basically in that line 206 there, that is reduced by the 140. So it would be
The opposite.
Yeah, it would be higher if
Got it.
they weren't. Okay, perfect.
And just because we all love Tabor so much, could you clarify what is the purpose of a Tabor restricted fund? Why does the law require that?
Voters vote on it.
I know, but there was a reason.
There are a
So,
lot of things. that
Very
can
much
be
the same as our 35% restriction then, right?
It is, but that 35 restriction is a council approved
Something
restriction.
we chose, yeah.
Yeah, and the Tabor is by,
Is state is saying, make sure you have at least this much.
The council could do away with 35% restriction.
No, we
You
addressed it.
can't do away with the table. So that's why they're called.
But essentially, this is not just rainy day, but like hurricane day kind of stuff,
I
right?
doubt it, because to tell the truth, that Tabor fund is not enough to get us.
It is small,
I
so.
was gonna say, as you can tell, the 140 for emergencies it would have to be a very small emergency.
Is that number based on, is that and every year it'll be something like that?
So basically, what
Or
it
is it a
is,
number that just
So-
goes through?
in practice, GASB has clarified that the Tabor restriction is 3% of the revenues that you bring in, excluding grants.
Okay,
But technically it's based on expenditures if you read the Tabor law. It's,
okay, I'm confused now, but okay, I'm going to let that go because you're right, it is a small,
welcome to my world.
reduced by Tabor, okay.
And I guess the big thing is when you get to the bottom line here, it's kind of what you were talking about previously, Councilmember Hagan. You can see that our fund balance is going to be up, projected to be up at the end of the year, despite some really large expenses written into this, the purchase of this building, things like that.
So if I'm the fund total general, called 3.6, is that what we're gonna have at the bank at the end of the year? Or is that what we're
Yeah.
gonna spend?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna get in $100, we're gonna spend $100, and we're gonna have $300 left at the bank. Very simple math for me.
In the fund, but
I mean, a lot bigger numbers, but
If you go up to line 191, you see the operating surplus and deficit. We're going to run a surplus for the general fund projected next year if the budget were approved of $370,000. So you take the ending general fund for last year, the actual balance, add 370 to it, and that should be the 3592.
so a lot less growth than we've seen in previous years.
Well,
It's not growth.
no, we're taking on some, it's not growth, it's surplus.
We're going to start spending money.
We're going to start spending
Yep.
money.
Understood.
Well, we're still budgeting for a healthy surplus that keeps us over $2 million. Our total surplus is
ending
$2
fund.
million higher than what our policy requires. So,
Go ahead on to the next one.
send it back. Yeah.
All right, so housing fund, so you can go line by line, or you guys can just ask your questions. Just let me know what your preference is.
Good questions?
I do. The transfer to the general fund for the 65,000, I know we've talked at length about the reason for this, right? And supplementing the assistant town managers or the proposed assistant town manager's salary for part of their workload being related to this, right? By rough calculations, it'd be about a half to a third, or yeah, a half to a third of the assistant town manager's time / salary, right? Do we think that that is an accurate assumption that they'll spend about a half to a third of their time on this work?
That's kind of the instruction I received from council that want to see housing moving forward.
100%. Do we have an idea of what the other 1/2 to 2/3 of their time might be spent on?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'd rather discuss that offline at this moment.
Okay.
I'm still figuring things out. So.
Yeah, something like that is like a personnel thing, and I think that it has to be an executive session instead of like.
Why does hiring additional staff have to be?
Councilmember had not.
No, like defer. It'll be addressed later.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, so any more questions on the housing fund? All right, and then next we have the CTF fund.
Actually, can I
Yeah.
here too? I'm going to be, we'll be adding at least one line here. I'll be talking to you about this in a meeting or two in the housing fund, a $75,000 expenditure to help refill the countywide revolving loan fund, which has been depleted. So you'll see that in a meeting or two.
We'll talk.
Sorry.
No, that's good information. Thank you. All right. So then CTF fund, Conservation Trust Fund. I'm sure there's no questions on that. No,
Other than a quick reminder that is restricted to be used for what purposes?
for essentially open space, parks, things like that. And it's restricted by the state. But
Not traps.
trails, it'll
Trails, parks, playgrounds.
So,
We control all that.
so in the future, after we have a master plan for trails and open space, we will have a way forward for what we can spend some of this money on.
Yes.
I'm not suggesting that we do this, but can we use this fund on purchasing like a golf course and operating it as a town? I just know in the East Coast, like, it's a random question, but if we build up
In
this fund,
principle,
could we purchase a park, a golf course, right, and operate?
I bet you we could buy outdoor mountains with this money.
But like, is that?
Actually, I don't know if you can purchase an enterprise thing. I think it has to be, it has to be. We'll have to look, I mean.
Enterprise being charging for use?
Mhm.
Okay, so if the golf course was free to use, like a public park, then we could use this, but we couldn't buy anything that would require a fee to use.
We'd have to look into it, but yeah.
Can we move on?
Because
John, it really doesn't impact this budget, and I'm trying to get us through this today.
I want to
Okay.
back them up that it's important that we understand what these funds are for.
Understand, but the different, buying a golf course isn't something that's on the
It was
table.
a concept in
We're
principle.
gonna argue more about it than just moving on. We're good to move on.
I'll send you all the CTF guidelines. That way you all have it in front of you, so that'll help.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So next we have the lodging tax fund. Same thing, questions. We talked about the transfer from the general fund for the police force, and then all of the police services coming out of that is the biggest thing in this one. And other than that, we projected revenues to be flat with our budget from this year.
Okay, so we can better understand the money available for major road construction. Next year, what was included in the road construction this year? That includes the sidewalk
Sidewalk and then Razor Drive, repavement.
Not Razor Drive, Ranch Road.
Oh,
Ranch Road. Do you have a number for Ranch Road, the final number? I
It's
haven't
around
heard it.
20,000.
220?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is anticipation of, you know, we have a lot of money in public works for road maintenance, that's potholes, things like this. This would be new
These are-
construction.
right.
The sidewalk from Razor Drive to the bus stop.
Yes.
Improvement on the north side of West Keystone Road across from our new sidewalk. And.
It could also include overlay work on West Keystone Road.
Yes, yep.
Is that enough? How did you come up with 700?
Well, given the cost of our sidewalk and our road, that's where I came up. Because we're not going to do as ambitious a sidewalk project. This was really ambitious with the retaining wall. That was
Absolutely.
incredibly expensive.
So this is a more conservative figure
And,
for a piece of the US 6 sidewalk.
and our, like the overlay on West Keystone Road, it's not going to be as extensive as what we did on Ranch Road. Ranch Road, we had to go down into the subgrade and refill. Now we're talking mill and overlay to fix those.
So you're comfortable with 700? Okay.
For now, until we get the bids back, because like I said, who the heck knows what the prices of things are gonna be in 2 weeks from now, let alone.
And using that budget number of 700,000 leaves us with an anticipated ending fund balance of about 500,000. So if something comes back a little bit more, if you guys decide that you want to do another project,
Yeah,
there's still a little,
That's what I'm
there's
thinking.
still a little extra, but it's also being conservative just in case, you know.
This is kind of a guesstimate of what it would take to do a section of that sidewalk, right?
The anticipation is the cost per foot for the road and sidewalk projects is much lower than what we did this year.
Correct.
So, okay.
But you're missing the point. The point is, there is money available if we want to take more than a small piece, we can extend it.
Extra $500,000 available.
Okay,
As long as our 1.6 lodging tax
Yes.
revenues stay.
okay.
Stay the same or.
And then as long as we have an engineering study ready to go. So just remind me, where is that money?
That's right below that.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay. So we can't expend that till January. Okay, got it.
And then once we do get ready, there'll be proposals and bids out that you guys will see. So.
Okay.
And then next, in the budget is just our fee schedule, which will be updated, with the fees that you guys just passed for,
Fines and penalties, two very different things.
fines.
Fines and penalties.
We did not pass the fee, right?
We did in January.
Yeah,
Well, this will be part of the budget approval.
you're just laying that out for our understanding.
We passed
Of something that we have already passed.
Well, and then, it has to, I mean, really and truly, it has to be approved each year, so it makes the best sense to approve it when you approve the budget at the end of the year.
Okay.
Moving back up previous page line 278, I think that inadvertently that was left blank. For
Yes,
26.
so it's absolutely about like $8,000. So
Oh, good.
actually, I think that 80,000 can come out of the 150,000 engineering design services. So 80,000 for trail construction maintenance and 70,000 for engineering design services. For now, on both those lines. It's,
Placeholders, as you said.
yeah. Yeah, because I absolutely have some trail plans.
Am I correct that in most towns that have had a mature planning process, that you would normally going into a budget season, you would have had your design completed for the project that we're going to do in the next year, And in most cases, you would then have firmer numbers than we're dealing with.
Well, no,
No?
you might have your design done, but then you might find out that wood is doubled in price.
Yeah,
And,
construction costs
you
are,
know.
But you would have a basis for the initial estimate, which would be what came out of the design study. And yeah, then execution could change significantly.
Kind of you're trying to get at basically a lot of other towns probably have a 5-year idea that in 3 years they're going to build a sidewalk,
Right.
whereas we're building the road as we drive on it.
Yeah. And that's what comes into a capital plan that I know the staff is going to be.
We're going to be working on a capital replacement plan in winter. But 3 years ago, we weren't a town. We had no idea how much money we have.
I just want to say thank you so much for going line by, and I know we spent a lot of time on this, but I know at least a few of us had a lot of questions. So thank you very much for spending the time to really explain even some of those smaller ones.
No, it's important.
Yeah. And I really took what the manager said to heart, and I hope that if anyone ever listens to this in the future, right, that having these conversations in the open and not John and I meeting in his office is also important for everyone to understand why these items are here. So,
And when it all shakes out, these conversations will all happen in the open. But specifically, some of the questions you talked about, there have been no final decisions made. I don't want to have these discussions and give the wrong impression to.
yeah. So thank you.
two different subjects, though.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Next is town manager appraisal discussion. Included in the packet was a draft that Dan and I put together based on inputs that we got. And as a proposal for the town manager performance review. And I guess the question is, what are your thoughts?
Thoughts? I guess I'll go since somebody else is. I really like to thank you so much for putting in the work. One thing that I had, written performance review on an annual basis at minimum initiated by the mayor or the town manager. I think that we should have some kind of asterisk in there or by a majority vote of the town council.
It's a requirement in the contract to have an annual review.
Yes, but if there's, so on an annual basis at minimum initiated by the mayor or town manager or by a majority vote of the town council. And where I'm coming from on this is if the town council believes that there's a need for an assessment and the mayor or town manager is not willing to do this and a majority of the town council votes to initiate this, I think that that would be a good way for a
It
checker.
doesn't have to be written, you can do that.
You can do that anytime you want.
But it doesn't say that
It
currently.
doesn't, it does in your authority.
Your authority.
Charter.
Charter.
Okay. Cool.
Check.
This just lays out that the person responsible for initiating the annual
Minimum.
review are here.
And then just a small thing, the mayor pro temp will meet with the town manager to discuss the review. I think it should say in private or, you know,
No, that's,
that's up to you. Okay.
As
and it
well,
will be. But I have
as,
the right to demand it happens in an open session.
for instance, we're planning an executive session to put together our review. The town manager can insist that be a public session if he desires.
Okay.
I think most, if not all of us, have contributed to this, and I think you two did an excellent job in merging them.
If there aren't changes, then I think at the last session, Carol, you mentioned, and John had agreed to put this in an Excel spreadsheet. Ask for something.
I did offer to put it in an Excel, yeah.
Would that be helpful to everybody?
I think it'd be, that was one of my further questions is the idea of this being written or is the idea of it being digital?
Both.
It has to be both.
It has to be both?
I want both.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we want the qualitative statements available.
I want
But
the
I-
qualitative.
Can I type out my answers or do they have to be with a pen?
Oh,
Oh, I don't care.
no, yeah.
Yeah, that's. So yeah, spreadsheet's good.
Digital
You can put a
way.
spreadsheet and write in it if you want.
Right.
You can type in it.
Right.
Yeah. thank you for offering to do that.
Okay.
I will
One,
be getting a summary of accomplishments.
Read what I
I did have a question on the town council relations. I think that the first four bullets were awesome, but I wanted to ask, is there a desire to have a fifth one related to guidance from town council being actioned? Because I didn't see one on there about guidance. So like if we or the mayor give guidance to John or the staff, ensuring that it's timely and appropriately actioned.
Which one are you talking about? Which?
Adding a bullet, or
Which
for
six?
number
Item
two,
two.
town council relations.
You have to be careful because I don't work for any single council member. So it's any actions the council gives me, that's pretty much the,
I think what you're referring to is the outside possibility that council has given guidance for the sense of council and no action is taken.
Isn't that number 2?
Concerns, is that guidance? What I'm trying to, and John, not that I think you'd ever do this, but
Right.
council says, we think you should look into a grant program for wildlife proof trash containers. And you go, I don't like wildlife proof trash containers. I'm not doing that. Like, that's what I'm trying to basically get is make sure like you actually action looking into it. And if we think that's hit by something else, I'll lay off, but I didn't get that when I was reading it.
I have to admit, if
that
you're
would be
being
number
very,
3, actually.
okay, because number 2, you could just say, oh, I hear you, and then not take any action, which is not like you, but we want to avoid.
Yeah, but I think number 3 sums up. what
Okay.
Councilman Day- Yeah, am I-
Or you could add the word explore recommendations / guidance.
That'd be awesome.
That would be better, yeah. Small change.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, and then for number 3, implementation of strategic priorities. One thing I did want to tie into the first bullet, starting with effectively tie, is some way to add that the goals should be in part driven by council. So what I drafted is saying collaborate with council to understand their goals and priorities, in so effectively tying council's goals and direction to proposed action.
That's your entire job, is to give me goals and priorities.
I think
But
that's,
what I'm trying to get at is part of your job is to understand our goals and priorities and action them.
but we communicate our goals and priorities through ordinances, plans, targets, and action. Do we not?
That's how I,
Add policies?
How I read this is the town manager can drive our goals.
No,
no.
Oh, I didn't see it that way.
he ties our goals and direction to proposed action.
Am I hearing what you're asking me to do and doing it?
Cool.
That's,
Oh, I see.
What else, John?
Number 4, team development had a repeat. Number 8 is repeated on the next one as well.
Where?
So number 4, team development,
Oh, 4.
sorry. The number 8, sorry, they're all numbers. Number 8, prepare the organization to act in crisis, is also repeated on number 5, prepare the organization to act in crisis.
okay.
Yeah, I had proposed that we move it into team development. Maybe we didn't take it out of the other.
Yeah, I don't really care where it is.
I think that was right.
Yeah,
Yes.
We had
it only needs
Carol
to be
had-
in one.
recommended and, right, and we left it in.
Cool, no worries.
We wanted to emphasize.
So, no, I don't think you did. So probably we want to take it out of wherever the other place
You're
is.
right, Carol.
Number 5, also bullet 9, tow priorities. I believe that was supposed to be town council priorities.
Yeah, we can change that to council.
Yep.
You don't like toe priorities?
I was wondering if John was opening a new business we didn't know about or something.
We passed our parking lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that one too.
The changes?
Financial management, one thing that I know we have talked about a lot is specialty funds such as housing. I wanted to try to find a way to add in here that ensuring the specialty funds are expended on appropriate funds related to activities and items.
If I don't.
Isn't that a
I
legal
think that's
requirement?
illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
That's-
I like the way you're thinking. I think we got that one covered.
And then number 3, effectively using long-term financial forecasting. I would propose adding informing counsel of these. So, and not that you don't do this, but basically if there's going to be a cost overrun, let us know ASAP. Is anyone opposed to adding informing counsel of these to that?
And that would read now how effectively use long-term financial forecasting to inform.
To aid
Counsel
in project,
and aid.
projecting budget variances and cost overruns.
So budget variances and cost overruns have to come.
That's all I had. Thank you.
All right. Did you track those few that we made?
The ones that I had, and I'll go super fast on these.
That we agreed to, yeah.
Yeah, that we agreed to. Just that $1 million for John as a bonus right there. No, the ones we agreed
that
to
is
was
super
remove on page 5, or sorry, page 6.
Page 6 or.
Page 6 or section 5, bullet 4. And then we would change bullet 9 to council or town council
Yeah.
on page 6 as well.
Didn't I hear that you want the scale changed to only allow 5s and 4s?
Hear that?
It's on a rating of 10. Ken, did you catch the 2 that we had a date on?
Which 2? You went, when you switch between pages.
These are
Sorry,
both on
page, these are
five.
both on page 6.
Well, I don't have, oh, I got you.
Section 5,
Got you,
organizational.
page 6, yes.
Page 6, section 5,
Mhm.
bullet 4 and 9 are the subject.
Got you,
bullets.
that's gone.
4 is gone, 9 is going to town council.
Got to
or
council per file.
Council or something.
Got you. And then
And there was one other.
on item 2, page 3, we're explore recommendations / guidance from council.
Exactly.
So those are the 3 changes.
Yes, sir.
All right. I will send you the, I think you'd prefer the word sheet.
Whatever, as long as it's an editable document.
I'll send you the word and I'll let you make those changes you input.
Perfect.
All right, next item. It's now 6 o'clock. What would you recommend we go on to, Mr. Town Manager?
I'd say we can keep following the agenda.
All right,
Our ethics, the
let's do
speed
the-
limits and bear ordinance were neither are in a crisis situation.
In that case, go over the ethics. This is the result of,
Mr. Mayor,
yes?
I think the food's been out there for about an hour. Do you want to eat and work?
All right, let me finish what I'm saying, and then we'll, the ethics piece was developed with the town attorney and a committee that we established, which included Council Member Martin and Council Member Thisted. So when we come back from picking up food, and I'd ask us to be quick, we can then I'd ask the town attorney to go over the draft. Is that satisfactory, everybody?
Yes.
Would I be able to propose like 5 minutes to eat too? I hate eating on the microphone.
So do I.
All right,
Maybe 6:20, we get back here, finished, ready to go.
Yeah, let's do that.
6:20, you got 15 minutes.
Yes.
All right. We're now back in session, and we're now dealing with the code of ethics. Turn it over to town attorney.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jennifer Madison. So just a little bit of overview on why we're here. First off, your town charter requires that, section 211 requires that you adopt your own code of ethics by April of 2026. Backing up even farther, related to the home rule charter, there was a discussion about the state's ethics codes and gift laws. And just a little bit of background on that. In 2006, Colorado voters approved an amendment to the state constitution. It's Article 29 of the state constitution. And essentially what that did was establish a gift ban and statewide ethics standards for public officials. It also set up the state's independent ethics commission. That section or that article of the state constitution also provided that those rules do not apply to home rule municipalities that adopt their own charter or ordinances that address the same matters. I'm happy to provide some background on the IEC for you if you would like, in terms of why it's good to have your own rules in place, why it's good to have your own enforcement mechanism. But if you're all comfortable with that, we can move forward. Okay. So the ordinance before you tonight, and I can go section by section if you'd like. There's a lot here. I realize you might have a lot of questions. So I'll go section by section of the draft code. First is really just your intent, saying that this is put in place because of this section of your charter. And what you did is you addressed the matters that are set forward in the Colorado Constitution specifically. And if you don't address the matters, there was a reason that you didn't address those specific matters. I will tell you, you have addressed all the matters that are in the Colorado Constitution. This code of ethics applies to public servants, and public servants is spelled out. It is the mayor, elected or appointed council members, officials appointed by town council, and those are spelled out in your charter. That is the town manager and town attorney. Other code of ethics often apply to your town judge for your municipal court. Here, because you have a relationship with the other cities, Silverthorne and Dillon, where you have to have the same judge, Councilmember Martin and I just decided that we would recommend not including the judge here. So the judge would have to follow the state rules similar to what the judge would have to follow with those other jurisdictions. It does apply to employees of the town, and it applies to all your members of your boards and commissions, other appointed officials.
A question on the judge, is there not a Silverthorne version of this?
There may be. I don't know if that applies to the judge. You know, if that's something you want me to look into.
I'm okay with how you have it.
Okay. One thing I wanted to point out is in the definition section, a couple of key definitions related to conflicts of interest and the give section. It's important to know what direct official action means. And that's defined in the definitions. And essentially for you, that would be your decisions that you make in a public meeting, you know, on your resolutions, on ordinances. Those are going to be your direct official actions. For the manager approving a contract, that's going to be same thing, direct official actions. Manager is not included in the definition of employee.
And that's because the town manager handles all ethics complaints against employees, and council would handle any ethics complaints against the manager. Financial interest also defined, that would be related to the conflict of interest section. And financial interest is kind of an easy definition. It means any interest equated with money or its equivalent. And then it lists out everything below that is financial interest does not include 1 through 8. 1 through 8 are exceptions. Gift also is an important definition, and essentially that's anything that's given that's of value. It doesn't have to be cash. It can be a service that's provided. It can be, you don't have to pay, if you have a debt, you don't have to pay that debt.
A small note, discount is included twice there. It doesn't look like that there's a difference between the two of them.
Yes, thank you. I see that. Okay. Personal interest also is defined here. Personal interest relates to later on conflict of interest. And again, personal interest is defined, and that is something that a prudent person would realize or experience some direct or substantial benefit or detriment. Personal interest does not include items 1 through 3. So an example here is personal interest includes an increase in the value of real property or advancement of an employment opportunity. That's an example of a personal interest. Okay, so Division 2 of this Code of Ethics defines what are prohibited acts. The first prohibited act is gifts, and this is again what was included in the Colorado Constitution. So it provides that a public servant shall not accept any gift if the public servant is in the position to take direct official action with regard to the giver of the gift, or the town has or is known to be likely to have a transactional business or regulatory relationship with the giver of the gift. Then Section B lays out exceptions to what is not a gift. At the start of Section B, it does say that, okay, you still have to use common sense. Provided that the gift cannot be reasonably considered a bribe or means of improper influence on a direct official action, the following shall not be considered a gift. So even if it meets one of the exceptions, if the intent behind the gift is a bribe, it's prohibited. So all of these exceptions are generally in the Colorado Constitution. Item 4 and 5 are unique. And these are, I would say, pretty typical in communities that have adopted their own code of ethics. 4 is meal expense, tickets to an event. Those would be items that are above $75. So if you're given a meal, that's okay. If it's customary to your position.
One thing that I had a question on, and I didn't see it anywhere, but I didn't know if it fell under this section, the one that you're talking about currently, is like drinks or a happy hour, right? Like, let's say our accounting partner offered to bring staff out for a happy hour and pay for that. Would that fall under 4, or is that a different one?
Yep, that would fall under 4.
Okay, and then on 4 as well, the line would be customarily accepted when considering the public servant's position. Could you explain that in simple man's terms?
Yeah, so, I mean, that is, it's discretionary. It is, maybe
a mayor of a bigger city might be customarily taken to a box event for a sporting.
The Super Bowl goes to New York, the mayor of New York may be invited to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And those tickets would be well over the $75 value. But that type of thing, you know, but
Thank you.
a sporting event in England, that would not be customary to an elected official's position in Colorado.
Are you sure?
It started.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
The other one that's unique is number 5. And that is the tickets or entry fees to an event that is advertised for the purpose of benefiting a nonprofit organization. And this seems to be a good thing to have in place, is that if you're asked to participate in this event, it benefits a nonprofit. It's not benefiting a profit organization. You know, the idea is that you don't have to look at how much is a ticket. Is it $75 or less, or is it above? And that means I can't go. So any questions on any other gift provisions? Okay, I think a lot of the other sections are pretty self-explanatory coming up. It's prohibited that you can't engage in any fraudulent activities. Also prohibited to supervise immediate family members. Now, this section does provide that you can get a waiver of that section.
How does that work with dating or relationships?
So that is not spelled out in this section here. If you're not an immediate family member, we have to go back and look at the definition of immediate family member.
I didn't see anywhere where like dating a subordinate or leader was called out. Do you know anywhere that might have been called out?
What's that?
Do you know anywhere where that situation might have been called out if they?
It's not called out as an ethics violation.
Is that typically not included?
It's correct. It's not typically included. Yeah.
That could be viewed as a harassment or some other type of
Yeah,
thing.
there's a
depending
lot of
on that.
risks involved.
There's a lot of risk.
And that, for me, that seems,
It could be part of your employment, your employee handbook, that type of thing, but it's not an ethics violation. If you
Okay.
wanted to add it, we
it
could.
just seems very like similar to the employment and supervision of immediate family members. Like if I was dating ex-employee and I was also on town council, that seems like it'd be an potential ethics violation without a waiver.
Well, that would not even be, even if that person was your immediate family member. So if we're just specifically looking at this provision here, it's really John supervising an immediate family member, or you appointing a town manager or a town attorney who is an immediate family member. You don't have supervision authority over town staff.
Okay.
Not that my kids would listen to me anyways, but how would this impact volunteer? If I made my kid come and vacuum the hallways for us?
It doesn't volunteer. Volunteers.
Well, and you have 6 months to work them before you'd be in violation. So.
Right. And you can get a waiver. So the section 4 conflict of interest, this is also a big issue in ethics. So conflicts of interest are defined as any sale to the town. So if you're trying to sell property to the town, say for use in a housing program, that is a conflict of interest, and you would need to recuse from that decision. And later on, we'll talk about what those recusal procedures are. But that is point blank conflict of interest. Any purchases from the town those are also a conflict of interest. However, if the property is offered, say, to the public, and you're buying it at the same terms as the public is buying it, then that is not a conflict of interest. So say, for example, town is getting rid of its laptops and offering those for the sale to the public, and you pick up a laptop on the same terms, that's fine.
Can I ask, why is a bidder auction not ethically? Okay, especially like if it were a blind bid or something.
Let me just read this.
On which bullet are you looking at?
Cease.
Just because that's more of like an appearance
Yeah.
of, special favors given to the council member in a bidder auction. I mean, if we wanted, I guess we could add the blind auction is okay. I don't
People
know.
would still question.
Yeah. Okay, then,
So if the town is getting rid of the car that we purchased and decides to put it out for local bid, a council member could not bid on it.
Correct.
Gotcha.
then the next thing is interest in other decision. So and this is the one where the definitions of financial or personal interest are important. But a public servant who has a financial or personal interest in any decision of the public body, that's also a conflict of interest. So say, for example, you own a cleaning company, janitorial service, and town has put out an RFP for janitorial service. Your company bids, and that contract needs to come before town council. You would have to recuse from that decision. Okay.
And question on this.
Yes.
Should we put, any interest, if I own interest in Excel Energy? And
So that-
bidding on natural gas services. That's
spelled out in the definition of financial interest. So, if you are, that is not a financial interest. It's excluded. It has to be significant. Okay. The other thing is, so section 5, if we're ready to move on from conflict of interest, section 5 is prior employment. The public servant shall not take any direct official action with respect to matters involving their former employers for a 6-month period. This is kind of a cooling off period where we don't want it to look like you're giving special favors to your previous employer. Section 6 is really more a disclosure requirement that you provide disclosure to the town clerk of what your outside employment is. And that way it helps identify what potential conflicts of interest may be.
Real quick on this. So if I am working at a company right now and Maddie is not aware officially that I work at XYZ company, that would be a violation of this?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the question I had. So any kind of interests, if we're on a board of some other company, we have to tell Maddie?
Yes.
So
We need to do
basically,
that.
as soon as we approve this, we're gonna get an email saying, please tell me everywhere you're involved with and work at?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the things that we added specifically for Keystone, because of all of your HOAs, is section E. That is new. So public servants serving on the governing boards of homeowners associations disclose such affiliations to the town clerk. And then if the HOA is directly affected by a matter before the council, the public servant shall consider recusal to avoid conflict of interest or the appearance thereof, especially if the person holds a leadership role.
So
Go ahead.
sorry, are all these shall, because I remember when I had asked for your guidance before about my employer and potential conflict of interest and how that would work, right? Just with how massive they are in the local area. It was if you feel there's substantial, right? Or that there's, you're going to say it better in legal terms, but like it's not basically requiring that anytime one of our affiliates comes here, we have to recuse ourselves. It's, you could recuse yourself if it's substantial enough.
Okay, so it requires a report. So you have to provide the report of where you're working to the town clerk.
Which we're going to do after this is passed.
Yes. It doesn't require recusal if a matter comes before the council that involves your employer.
Okay.
However, for the HOAs, there is written in, and again, this is new, this is specific to Keystone. There's written in a section that the recommendation essentially is that you consider that this could be a conflict of interest or an appearance of impropriety if you are in a leadership role on your HOA and a matter is coming before the council that affects that HOA.
Yeah, I would make one recommendation. Instead of just say e.g. president or vice president, I would say HOA board,
Okay.
because they're basically of equals.
Is board consistent with every HOA? Because
Yes, the board of managers.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things that come to us that are going to affect HOAs in general.
Right.
So are you specifying, is this intended to, if there was a specific decision for a specific HOA as opposed to this will generally?
Yes, so this is, and the preceding sentence before that, or the clause before is, if the HOA is directly affected by a matter before the council or the relevant town board, then, and it doesn't even say you have to.
Yeah, that's the part, because almost everything is going to, a lot of things are going to directly affect the council members' HOA and 30 others.
Right.
So I wonder if it would be more useful than saying shall consider recusal, shall, I don't know, good language, consult with the town attorney, which is what you have recommended to us in the past.
Right, yes. But I think this is, if the intent here, and this is what I have heard, I think this is what Councilmember Martin has heard, is that HOAs are important role in Keystone. And that there are, some concerns about the roles of HOAs and council and decisions that council makes. And so having language like this that says shall consider recusal makes it stronger. If that's what the intent is to make it stronger.
Oh,
This
it sounds very weak to me. You can consider it and ignore it.
Well, it would be evidence of the fact that there's a potential conflict here.
Okay, which I think
Jennifer, you're basically saying that this is such an important thing for our town that we called it out specifically.
Correct.
But I also think it really comes back to letting people know your associations. Right.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
But you do still recommend that we consult with you, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, because it's hard to know your, say, for example, your short-term rental regulations. Those apply, HOAs are going to be affected by those regulations, but they're not, an individual HOA is not directly affected. It affects
That's the
whole-
distinction I wanted
Yes.
to find, yes.
It's like, yeah, we're gonna have to break this up, but it's also like you own property in
I'm
Keystone.
good, I'm good.
STRs impact
It's
individual
general.
properties.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to recuse yourself.
But for instance, if the town was considering, what's the word when you take over something? Eminent domain against a specific HOA, that would be an example, right?
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
And we have about 3 minutes, so.
Okay, well,
Would you be okay if we just asked any questions super fast? Because I think this was really well done.
Yeah, I did
Go ahead
too.
and ask.
okay.
Page 11, abstain from voting on or taking any official action related to the matter. I believe we cannot abstain. Don't we have to refuse to vote? So do we need to change that verbiage to be refused to vote?
Where's, that is for,
Page 11, bottom line.
oh, for conflict of interest. No, I mean, if you have a conflict of interest, then, and our rules provide, then you cannot vote and you can abstain.
Okay, but I thought in our charter, we can't abstain.
So that's in your rules of procedure.
Okay.
And there's a carve out if you have a conflict of interest.
Gotcha, thank you.
There's also a carve out for appearance of impropriety, and this is kind of a cool thing in the code because you can abstain, but if it looks bad, you know, if it's kind of one of those situation smells, but you really don't have a conflict of interest, you think it would look bad to the community if you voted. This code of ethics allows you to step back and it's not, it wouldn't go against your rules of procedure related to abstaining.
Okay. On the top of page 12, it talks about physically leaving the room or premise during discussion. Are we allowed to watch the conversation remotely?
Yes, and the reason that that's there is so you cannot use facial expressions or gestures to influence council members.
And then the only other big thing I had, this is probably gonna be more than 2 minutes. A decision to suspend or remove requires a 2/3 vote of council members in office at such a time, page 22. I think removal of office is one of the more severe things we could do. And so my proposal would have been 3/4.
This is in the charter.
It's in the charter, okay. Okay, and then, the available penalties, it talks about, penalties, financial, all that kind of stuff. Do we have any enforcement on that? Like if, and let's say I embezzled $100,000 from the town, right? And I get fined 100,000 or twice that, so $200,000. Is there any ramifications to force me to pay that back? Do you have any teeth anywhere?
Well, we wouldn't really, we would have, it would be a penalty against you and we probably could enforce it in court.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is more the smaller things, I take a $50 Rima paper or something, I don't know. And then I'm gonna get charged $100 to replace it.
Mhm.
And that's the smaller things. It's either pay that or lose your job or get separated from council. That's the intent, the smaller things.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I had. And this is again, very well done. So thank you for all the
Any
time
other-
that's put into it.
Any other questions? Council? In that case, with the minor changes, we should see this in the future council meeting as a first reading.
Yeah, and if you do have run across, we can bring this at the next meeting, but if you do have any concerns that did come up, just let me know.
Please, yeah, please forward them on.
Good job, thank you.
Good
Yeah,
job.
Thank you very much.
Good job. All right, next in that case, since it's now 7:00, I'm going to adjourn this meeting without objection. And then we'll start our council meeting, and then we'll address the other items in a future meeting. Town manager. All right. Transition.
I didn't catch my extra period.
That's page 18, I believe. Right?
There's someplace I just saw it. Amazing. Yeah. When we get to the executive session, okay, just. Council meeting to order, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Hagenau.
Present.
Councilmember Kerr. Here. Councilmember Martin.
Present.
Councilmember Parmet.
Hello.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor Riley.
Present.
There are 6 members present.
Thank you. Now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.